perspective, ESLBD will have their budget oversight hearing on the 24th as well. And then finally on the 24th, with respect to planning, zoning and OP, Office of Planning, will both have their budget oversight hearings again on March 24th. March 30th, all things education. So DCPS, charter school, all those agencies related to education will be on the agenda for that day, and also MPD with respect to the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety will be appearing on March 30th. March 4th is DDOT. And I know in 5A there's always a number of concerns and observations related to DDOT, and so wanted to give you all those dates to keep that in mind. The final thing, and I know that I cover other meetings where a number of folks on this meeting may have already heard this, but I just wanted to also reiterate that the council member has been championing money for small businesses with respect to funding the Bridge Fund. And so I'm going to put a link in the chat that gives some details on the Bridge Fund. But just to summarize, there's been a series of funding opportunities that have happened since the beginning of the pandemic. The next phase of bridge funding will begin on this coming Saturday, February 26th, and it will close on March 18th. And this is for businesses that missed previous opportunities. And these are businesses that have demonstrated a loss of 20% or more with respect to revenue during the COVID-19 pandemic between April 1st of 2020 and the end of the year in 2021. Previously, the requirement was 30%, and they dropped that to be able to have a wider scope and a wider lens for businesses from 30 to 20% in loss. The awards will range between $20,000 and $100,000, and the uses can be used for rent or mortgage for the businesses, payroll and labor, inventory, or operating expenses. And there are more details on obviously dc.com, but I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that, given the fact that the council member and his committee has worked extremely hard to make sure that we've been able to support those small businesses. And as I always say, those people who run those businesses are just like you and I. They live among us, they walk among us, they are us. And in many instances, they are employing people. And so the recovery effort for the city is very important. And this is a very important part of that. With that, Commissioner Edwards, I will give the floor back to you, and I'll attempt to answer any questions you all have.
All right. Thank you, Silas, for that report. Let me ask you, I know you didn't mention anything about it, and maybe you don't have any updates or anything, but in terms of redistricting, and I know that we're probably going to talk about it a little bit later on, Commissioner Washington, but is there anything that you would like to give us, any updates in terms of redistricting that you are aware of?
Yeah, so in the next few days, we'll be updating our redistricting site with a few updates that need to be posted. One is the latest recording from last night, and I believe there's some language, some text that has to be added to the site for clarity. There were some questions over the last 24 hours with respect to subcommittees, as well as next steps for those committees in terms of breaking out to begin looking at the current commissions and attempting to draw those maps based on the census numbers that we've seen updated. And so there is some clarity that we have to reach on that. We have heard back that the breakout sessions do not require the same, there's not the same requirements as they are for the entire body of committee coming together. The Open Meetings Act does not apply in the same way for the breakout sessions as it does for the full committee. So all of that language, we'll be looking to put on our website pretty shortly. We're looking to reconvene in 2 weeks with the entire committee, but there will be breakout sessions that will be happening between now and then. And the goal of that next meeting is for those committees to provide some updates. I know there's been some frustration among the group with respect to how things are going, and that happens from time to time when we have large groups trying to take on a very large issue. So we have heard some of the concerns, and we're working right now to work on some of the kinks that have to be updated. So that's the latest for you, Chairman Edwards. And as we get more updates, I'll be sure to let the commissions know.
Thank you. Any other questions? I see Commissioner Fletcher.
Yes, Chairman Edwards. Hello, Silas. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the updates. I read in the news, I think it was today or yesterday, that Director McFadden for the Office of Neighborhood and Safety Engagement has resigned or stepped down. And so I know that that was a key piece of legislation, key part of the legislation, the NAIR Act that Councilman McDuffie introduced and is now law. So I was just curious if you had any insight, any information regarding that, regarding where that office is going to be now that Director McFadden is no longer leading that department.
Certainly, certainly. First and foremost, you are correct. Director McFadden has announced his resignation. I believe he's given a 3-week notice.
Okay.
So he will be on for at least the next 2.5 weeks. With respect to where the agency goes from there, the council member has been very clear in the past and very clear now that leadership within the Office of the Neighborhood Safety Engagement agency we have to have agency leadership within that agency that has a great appreciation for the NAIR Act in its entirety. And so that is one thing that the council member is making clear as we move forward. I am not certain in terms of what the agency will do in the interim. I'm scheduled to have some conversations with leadership later on in the week and hoping to get more updates on who will be at the helm until there's a new confirmation. But what I will say is that I know that the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, as you've mentioned, is a key factor in the NAIR Act, which is a key piece of legislation that our office put forth. And as we look at potential candidates, the ask that we will make from residents as residents get an opportunity to weigh in at the confirmation process is that we take a keen look at who the candidates are and to really, really hone in on if they are extremely appreciative of the NAIR Act and not in a way where we're piecemealing it. We want to be able to fully fund the NAIR Act. We want to be able to roll it out as a true public health approach to responding to gun violence. So as we get more updates around who will be the interim, we'll let you all know.
Thank you very much. That's my only question, Mr. Chair.
All right. I didn't see any other hands. Are there any other questions? All right, Silas, thank you very much for your report. And like I say, as always, it's a good report.
Thank you all so much.
All right. Also, commissioners, I also been reminded of our agenda and the adjustment that we needed to make a further adjustment. And that was to move the National Park Service up. They have a tight schedule and also is requesting to be heard. So I want to move them up as the next speaker on the agenda. Ms. Elder, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We really appreciate it and appreciate the opportunity to come and address the community once again as it relates to Fort Totten and the paved trail, as well as a couple of other related issues that have come up as we commence with this project. I have joining me tonight, Nick Bartholomew, our program manager for lands and resources, particularly resource management. And we have our brand new Deputy Superintendent of Rockford Park, Brian Joyner, joining us this evening. I just wanted to open up with noting that we have and will continue to address the community, providing updates to not only the community, but we have been in contact with Councilmember McDuffie's office as well, and keeping most apprised in the community with our updates. On this past Tuesday, well, the previous Tuesday, Tuesday the 15th, we sent out for your reading and for your information, several reports, in fact, 3 reports, 2 on soil reports that we promised that we would be conducting in that area after the exploration of an unexploded ordnance. And we also provided updates on the trail itself and the progress that we're making. As most of you know, we came to you back in October and shared with you the finding of an infrastructure belonging to WMATA associated with the Green Line Tunnel. And so we then informed you all at that time that we were looking to determine what was the best course of progress, and that was to look at realigning the trail. It doesn't look like we have to do a major realignment, but I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Nick Baltami, who's going to share with you all the updates and a very brief summary from those reports that you received on February 15th. If you all need those reports again, I can send them to you. But Nick's going to share with you just a brief summary, our findings, what's next. And again, we are committed to keeping you all engaged and informed, and we will continue to come to the meetings when invited and when we know that it's necessary to update the community. So at this time, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Nick.
Thank you, Kim. Good evening, everyone. Nice to be here. I'm sure that most of you know what was in the news recently about the unexploded ordnance there in the area between Gallatin and Galloway. And I just wanted to follow up and just give a brief summary, as Kim mentioned, about what we found when we went in there and investigated. That unexploded ordnance, which was empty and did not have any explosive material in it, was found closer to Galloway along the trail construction back in 2020. And as soon as it was found, the military took it away and destroyed it. We received x-rays. We haven't had a final confirmation report, but we received x-rays that showed what this was. It was such a World War I chemical weapons container, but it was empty. It appears to have been on the top of the ground. We don't know if it was buried underground or if it became exposed by erosion. But in any case, we found it during the initial construction of the trail, and we stopped work and we did an investigation where we went in with a company that specializes in looking at these types of investigations, and did some test pits, and we tested the soil. We found no evidence of any other unexploded ordnance. We found no evidence of any gross contamination in the soil. What we found was basically what you would expect to find in urban soils. So we don't believe that there's any threat to the community at this point. We've looked at that whole area with the trail, and we're going to look again after we go in and make the determination about how we're going to nudge that trail a little bit to the east. We'll go back in and we'll do test pits and check to see if there's any unexploded ordnance in that soil that covers the metro tunnel. But that will occur shortly. And as Kim mentioned, we're redesigning the trail, so we're hoping that everything will be back on track shortly, but we will be monitoring. And if anybody has any questions, we're happy to take them now and provide any information that we can for the neighborhood.
All right, thank you all very much for that update. So it's good to know that everything is safe, at least in you all's viewpoint. Commissioners, anybody have any questions, any follow-up? Uchenna, I see Uchenna has her hand. Uchenna, you have the floor.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Kim and Nick. Thank you for coming tonight. I have a couple questions. So, of course, in that news report, it looks like the Army Corps of Engineers are the ones who said that they did find some type of chemical or something inside the shell. And then also, of course, Congresswoman Norton said that she wanted to call a joint meeting of the Army Corps of Engineers, National Park Service, and WMATA. Has that meeting happened yet? And what was the outcome of that meeting? Thank you.
Kim, are you okay if I take this?
Sure, Nick.
Yeah, there was nothing found in that canister. We've seen the x-rays. There was no material in there, no blaster cap either that would have ignited it. As for the meeting with the Congresswoman's office, we're tentatively scheduled for next Monday, I believe, but it hasn't been set yet. The Congresswoman's office sent out a message today, I believe, stating
Yes.
that, yeah, so we expect it to be Monday. We don't know the time and we don't know if that's firm yet, but that will hopefully happen sometime next week.
And her office has also received the reports that we sent over as well. And so we know that that may make a difference as well, but we are happy to go in and update she and her staff as well.
Okay, Commissioner Fletcher.
Kim, Nick, thank you again also for being here. Kim, I tried to do my best. I appreciate our chairman moving you up on the agenda because I know your time is tight tonight.
We appreciate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Appreciate you all so much. With that meeting that's potentially scheduled for next week, I'm kindly asking if I could be notified, or if our chairman could be notified around that as well, being that it does sit and reside in my single member district. And there are many residents that constantly want to know about what's happening regarding that path. And I would like to have that information as soon as possible. And I think it will be good if our chairman got that information as well, so we can keep our community members apprised to what's going on as quickly as possible.
We certainly will. This meeting was called by Norton's office, so it's Norton staff that is scheduling and everything, but we will inform them that we have met with you all as well, and that you'd like to be included in the discussion.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
Okay, Commissioner Lockett, you're up next. Commissioner Lockett?
Okay, sorry about that. I was on mute. Okay. Now, Nick, how many pieces of ordnance was found there in that area? Just one?
Just one.
One piece? And
Correct.
was it, I would say, centrally located where, because you didn't find anything in it and you did soil tests and nothing seemed to be leaching out of it?
Yeah, it was located very close to Galloway, where the trail comes off down the slope, and before it joins the sidewalk there heading towards the WMATA station. There was no evidence of any chemical materials within it, but I didn't handle it. Nobody handled it except for DOD, and we're still awaiting the final disposition reports, but the x-rays didn't show anything.
Okay, I've done it before, so I was just curious if there was any residue left from that may have leached into the ground. And in that case, over the years, that could have gone a lot of places. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, Commissioner Lucio, you're up.
Thank you. I wanted to just reiterate what Commissioner Fletcher said. If you can let us know, I'm happy to post any information through our email list and on our website if there is information for us to share. I think the residents are really anxious to know what the status is going to be of that pathway. So as soon as we can get an update on the timeline for the completion of that, that would be extremely helpful. Thank you.
We plan to do just that. Of course, it's the season where you don't see a lot of construction going on right now because of the winter season. So we are hoping to have the final decision on the realignment. As Nick noted, it's very minor, but we hope to have the approval of that very minute adjustment in the alignment, and we'll get started as soon as the weather permits us to.
Thanks. And one other quick thing, if you can send me the documents you mentioned earlier to make sure I have them for our records, that would be helpful as well. Thanks. And
I certainly can.
Thank you. Chairman Edwards, in the chat, Uchenna has asked that she has a couple more questions if she can.
I see her hand. Uchenna, you're up.
Yeah, so Commissioner Lucio actually asked my question. I wanted to know to whom those documents were sent last week, those 3 reports that the National Park Service said you all sent out. And then also, I know I've asked this before, but I just want to make sure. So there's supposed to be a sidewalk constructed on the south side of Galloway between South Dakota and 4th Street. And I've asked before where you all are doing this testing. It's not clear exactly where this testing is all being done. But I also just want to make sure you all are accounting for where that sidewalk is supposed to go and that you're not going to run into the same issue again once you all finally get to constructing that sidewalk.
So Kim, if it's okay, I'll take this too. Yeah, we've actually just restarted that project and are holding regular meetings on it. as part of that project, we will do monitoring for unexploded ordnance, just like we did for the trail that crosses between Gallatin and Galloway. So we'll be looking in that area. So we'll keep you informed as we move forward.
Thank you.
Ms. Evans, could you put in the chat, or you can send me I can put my address in the chat, and you can send me your address, because you have received correspondence from me before, and so I sent it to the same list that I normally send it to.
Yeah,
so I have no problem. I could send it to you and Commissioner Lucian again tonight.
sure.
Anyone else would like to have a copy of it?
Yep, I have your email address, so I can email you, but I haven't been anything from the National Park Service, but thank you. I'll email you. Thank you.
I'll get it to you tonight.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all for a good update. Do you have anything in closing you'd like to say?
No, I didn't know if our deputy superintendent wanted to say anything at all, but he is on the call.
Okay. You got the floor.
Thank you very much. So one, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Brian Joyner. I've been deputy superintendent here at Rock Creek for a whopping 8 days if you count the holiday. So thank you very much for allowing me to join this meeting. I'm a resident of Washington, D.C. I actually live in Petworth. I live about a 0.9 mile walk from Fort Totten. So I'm familiar with the trail. I'm familiar with the work that's been going on there. And I share the concerns the community has about making sure that the Park Service gets this right. More importantly, all of the other partners who've been involved, those of us who are Washington natives know that, some of these projects have, lifespans that, go back 30, 40 years, the roots of them. And sometimes when the things come to light, by the time they do, none of the people who actually should be responsible for them are around. But we want to make sure that we do our part. And I just want to say thank you to Nick. I want to say thank you to Kim, who been, dealing with this issue. And you all can feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my phone number and my email in the chat. If you have any questions, Nick is probably the subject matter expert on this. We're going to let Kim go back to handling the stuff she does with the Civil War Defenses of Washington, and doing all the other good work she does, but she can't go too far because she has to make sure I don't fall down on the job. So it was a pleasure. It's a pleasure to meet you all, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Joyner. It's very nice meeting you as well, and we certainly look forward to working with you guys. You got a great team. They always keep us informed, so we appreciate that, and we look forward to working with you.
Likewise.
Anything further?
Thank you all very much for the opportunity to update you tonight.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you all.
All right, the next item on the agenda then is the EYA historic.
Chairman Edwards, I'm sorry, can I interrupt real quick? Because Derek Staten is on, and so is Delando from DDOT.
Okay, let's do Derek right quick, and then we can then go to what is DDOT is what, giving us an update.
They weren't on the agenda, but they are here, so I just wanted to let you know that.
Oh, so okay, all right. If they have anything after we get finished with Derek, then we can give them an opportunity to say the word.
And Nokomis is also on.
Okay, all right. Nokomis, we tried to get you earlier, but you weren't here, so now you on the end, unless you tell us you have some time pressing concerns. So let's go back now then to Derek.
Hello, how's everybody doing?
Hi, Derek.
Okay,
Hey,
I do
Derek.
not have a presentation. I'm just sitting in my capacity as an outreach coordinator for citywide. So I'm citywide with the chief's office. So I don't have a presentation from MPD. I'm sure one of my colleagues, if they're not on, I'll definitely be taking notes and making sure that that your concerns get back to them. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Derek, thank you. We had already been told, Commissioner Washington told us what was going on with the police department, and we know you all under a lot in terms of trying to be prepared for all the happenings. So best of luck to you guys and keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
The next item then is DDOT. Is anyone, the representative from DDOT, is there anything pressing that you have for us, or you just visiting? Okay, don't hear anything. Commissioner Fletcher, you
Delando,
have
I
something?
think, Delando, are you still there? I see Delando still here.
Okay.
Oh, there he is. He
Hi,
just
I'm here.
unmuted.
I didn't hear the question. Repeat it again for me.
No, I was just saying that you have the floor. And I was just basically asking if there was anything in particular that you wanted to talk to us about, or you were just visiting.
Oh, yes. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? I do actually, if you have time, I would love to present the TSI one-pager.
TSI, what is TSI?
So TSI, Traffic Safety Investigation, it's a 311, our new process.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar at all?
Yes, I'm familiar with it. Commissioners, are you all okay with this presentation at this time?
I think it'd be helpful.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yes, that works for me.
All right. So
Okay.
Hearing no objections, Commissioner Fletcher, if I could, you had your hand up, and before we move on, is it something that we were talking about that you wanted to?
Yeah, just real quick, because as I was walking in my neighborhood, I know this is an issue that Bill Smith, Robert Oliver, Uchenna Evans, Gavin Baker have talked about before regarding the crosswalk signage that's needed on the intersection of 8th and South Dakota. There's a blind man that lives in my single member district, and I was reminded of it again when I was walking the neighborhood a couple of days ago. And Delano, I would like to talk with you and figure out what we can do. I know work has already been done regarding this, regarding doing a traffic safety investigation to determine what can be done with that area. But the gentleman said, and I repeat, a quote, he doesn't want to wait till he's killed before there's a crosswalk signal placed on the intersection of South Dakota and 8th Street. So again, this is something that I know some of us are already aware about. I just want to bring it to your attention to see what we can do regarding this again.
Commissioner Fletcher, I think that if once Mr. Baker explains the process, you'll be able to move forward, because there is a process that we have to take in order to do that.
And absolutely, Commissioner Washington, I just want to be respectful to those that have already been working on this prior to me. I know individuals have, so I just wanted him to know that this is something that folks have been working on.
I thought we had also taken a position with regard to this. This is not the first time.
I can't again. I don't. I think so, but I'm not sure. I do hear Commissioner Washington saying I will hear for the presentation, but I just want to bring this up and advocate on the issue, because I told the gentleman, the resident, that I would bring this before us tonight, and so I just want to do that so we can kind of bring this back up and put it top of our minds, see what we can do regarding this issue.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I appreciate that, but because we have a new process in place, regardless of what has happened, and that's what Mr. Baker is going to explain, we do have to follow that process. And he's going to give that training, and if he can go over that, then we'll all know, and even the residents will know what we have to do and what's entailed to move that forward.
Sounds like a plan. That was it, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Baker, you have the floor. The only thing I want to add to what Commissioner Washington says is that this is a long sort of standing issue, I believe, in our neighborhood that we have discussed previously and sought assistance from DDOT on. So whatever the process is, you know, we hope that it is not something that will take us another 5 years, especially since we've been working on it for so long. So I'll just leave the floor up to you. Now you can tell us what you want to talk about and hopefully address this issue for us.
All right, no problem. Thank you, Commissioner Washington, for clarifying that. And I will touch base on that concern with the blind pedestrian after I give the presentation. I'm not really sure how to share my screen on here or if I have permission to, but if I can.
I need to give you permission,
Okay.
but Delundo, if you can also send me a copy of the presentation so we have that for our records.
It's already been sent out.
We already have it. Everybody should already have it.
Okay, I need to put it in my file as part of the meeting stuff. So if you could just send it separately to me, so I have it for my meeting stuff. I sort of put that in a separate file. That'd be helpful. Delano,
Okay.
you should have screen sharing privileges and you're on mute.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Is everyone able to see the screen?
Yep.
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, great. So DDOT changed our traffic safety process in November. Initially, it was called traffic safety assessment. Now it's called traffic safety investigation. And in short, to make things very simple for everyone, residents or commissioners will go on to the 311.dc.gov website to file any kind of traffic safety investigation. You also can just call 311 as well, but if you're going to do it online, you would go to the website here, 311.dc.gov. You will state the traffic safety concern. So one thing that we are seeing that is a common issue. A lot of residents are going to the website and they will complete the traffic safety investigation form, but they will state what they want done. So like, let's say you want speed humps on a certain block. The best way or the most effective way to have that addressed is to just state the concern, which is typically traffic calming relative to speeding. Instead of stating, hey, we want speed humps, state what the actual traffic safety concern is. And then the engineers will assess and determine, whatever safety measures DDOT can actually implement. So after that 311 request is filed, you receive an email, which will give you a 311 service request tracking number. From there, DDOT will evaluate the safety issue to determine what actions are needed. And then we will communicate the findings to the resident. That process takes 130 days approximately. And then from that on, if we do decide to move forward with any safety measures, we will send out a notice of intent, which typically comes to the commissioners. And then you all will be able to inform the residents that we're going to implement whatever safety measures. And then from there, let me stop there. So we'll send out a notice of intent if we're going to do work. If we are not going to do any work, we will also send a notification via email stating our findings and why we're not going to move forward. Whether that's because we feel like the safety measures at that intersection are up to speed, or there may be a corridor study. So if there's like a larger study in place, DDOT typically won't do an immediate change in safety measures until that corridor study is done for that whole area of the neighborhood. So I'll move forward. If we actually do move forward with doing a notice of intent for work, we'll send out a 30-day notice of intent letter to the ANC. And from there, we will have another quarter to complete the work. So for example, here at the bottom here, you'll see, like, let's say there was a TSI service request created in, we'll say November. It'll take the 130 days. And then after the 130 days, let's say you get a notification in January. So if you get a notification in January saying DDOT is going to do install whatever work, speed humps, always stop control, anything like that, we will actually have the work completed within that next quarter. So it'll be the second quarter, which here you'll see like it's January, March. So that'll be the new process. This is basically created to have an accountability for DDOT, as well as allow residents to track progress on any safety concerns that they've submitted in our system. I also want to inform you all that if there has been a service request that has been submitted before November, when we started implementing this new change, unfortunately, if you haven't been receiving any updates, more than likely we have to do a new service request. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I will touch basis on the pedestrian issue. It is currently under assessment, so we have to allow the 130 days. I believe there was a service request put in, I'm going to say a month ago. So it's still within that assessment period, but I am aware and have been informed that this has been an ongoing issue for maybe a couple of years. So DDOT does understand that the severity of the issue. We just want to do a proper assessment to make sure that whatever we implement is going to be something that the community one agrees with and is going to actually be effective for him to safely cross the street. So once that assessment is done, we'll have more information for you on next steps, but that will be within the 130 days that the service request was submitted.
So if I'm following you right, then from this point forward, then any kind of TSI requests and things like that that is submitted, then we can expect probably about a year before we start seeing any kind of resolution, assuming that that the DDOT agrees that it's a problem and it needs to be fixed, and probably about 6 months, close to 6 months, about 4, 5. I'll give you 5. To take it and review it, to even get back to the residents to say, what your findings are. It's not too exciting, I don't think, from a neighborhood standpoint, especially when we're talking about dealing with issues regarding safety. But I will leave, I see I got hands up, and I'm gonna take those hands in the order that I saw them. And I saw them additionally, it was Commissioner Washington, then Commissioner Lucio, then Commissioner Fletcher, and then Commissioner Lockett. So we will take them in that order. Commissioner Lockett.
Oh, me first.
Commissioner, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Commissioner Washington.
Okay.
I was not the first to put my hand up, but I've had conversations with Mr. Baker and with Kelly about this process. And for me, I feel like that DDOT is doing us and the community an injustice by having such a long period of time to process requests of safety. And my recommendation is that we take this up with the person, whoever the council member is over the Department of Transportation, to have them to look into DDOT's process. Because I just think what they're expecting us to do and residents to do in the time frame is just not acceptable. That's my comment.
If I can respond, Commissioner
Yes,
Washington, I would agree with you from a resident, from a standpoint of a resident or someone that lives, in the neighborhood. I totally agree. But I think that one thing that we have to take in consideration, and maybe that's something that, DDOT needs to improve on. I can speak to that even as an employee. We don't have the resources, we don't have the capacity to respond to every service request and complete the work. So we only have so many engineers, and then you have to think there's so many service requests that we receive daily, and that's for each SMD, right? So we're getting all of these service requests. We have only so many engineers. They have to now look at these service requests. They have to go out physically and assess these areas, and then they have to implement the work. So, that's a long process, and it would seem like, we could get it done sooner, but based off clearly what DDOT, has come to the determination, we just don't have the capacity, we don't have the resources to, have a service request submitted and then have work done in a month and a half to 3 months. We just don't have the resources to do that. If the issue is dire, right? And unfortunately, I know that, you know, we also get responses like, you know, well, does someone have to die or get, you know, drastically injured, you know, to get DDOT's attention? You know, we can expedite depending on the circumstances, but we can't do it for every concern. We just don't have the capacity.
I'd like to, can I comment back to Mr.
Sure.
Baker?
Go ahead.
And that's my reason for saying we need to address it with the council member. If it's a budget issue and you don't have the resources, maybe you need to be doing a budget request. Because a lot of these things that we put forth with DDOT have been going on for a number of years. So what you're saying to me is for a number of years, and I'll speak specifically to my area, all the way back to 2015, things that are still sitting in the pipeline or that were not addressed is because of the lack of resources or the lack of staff. That's unheard of, because if a director doesn't have the resources, they need to be going and asking the mayor or someone for additional resources so they can address these things in a timely manner. That's my concern. And if we have to go to the council member, to who's over it to give money, then if that's the issue, then that's what the director should be requesting.
Understood.
Mr. Baker, I can just say that as this conversation is proceeding, I do know that I've heard one important date tonight in the earlier part of the meeting. That date is becoming more and more important to us now, and it's DDOT's budget hearing on March the 4th. We're talking here about a $19 billion empire that spends money, billions of dollars every year. And so what we're talking about now here are safety kind of issues and concerns that our residents have. And then for our government, who's responsible for taking care of those things, to just come and say, hey, because of our budget and because of all this, it's going to take us 6 months to get back to you and tell you, give you any kind of response about what you're talking about. And then it's going to take up to probably a year for us to resolve your issue. That is unacceptable, and it is of great concern for us. Commissioner Lucio, you have the floor next.
If I could respond to that.
Yes.
Before we go, I agree with you, but I do want to touch that it's not just budget. It's also in order for the engineers to do a thorough assessment. And I'm not an engineer, and I can't speak to how they determine the time length that they need for that assessment. But it is not just the budget. It is also in order for the engineers to do a thorough assessment and, be able to basically effectively do their jobs. So, there's two things that I know for sure that are in consideration. I will mention, obviously that there's a lack of resources. We probably do need additional engineers, but also it is the assessment. So we have to take that into perspective as well. These are professionals, these are educated engineers. There's a process that they have, and we have to also allow that process to happen. I'm not saying that it should happen and take 8 months, but I do think that that is something that needs to be considered as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. Commissioner Lucio.
Thank you, Chairman Edwards. Good evening, Delando. I wanted just to clarify, just as a general point of information for everyone, that obviously there are two ways to report things on 311. One is by phone and the other one is on the website that Delando mentioned in his presentation. I will say, for those who have not done the website before, one of the benefits to making a report on the website is that you can attach photos. And so I think that when you're able to attach photos, that does help. Delando, if you can confirm that, that'd be helpful in terms of what types of photos would be helpful to you. The second thing I wanted to ask real quick is, I do feel like we're getting, taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back every time I turn around with DDOT. And one of my concerns is that, there was one point in time I submitted a traffic safety study, and I had put together this large parcel of land, of area to do. And then as I was instructed to do, and then we were told to break it up into 3 different reports with smaller sections. And then a few months later, I submitted 2 or 3 small traffic safety study requests, and we were told, oh, well, why don't you just put them all together as one? So I really would like clarification in terms of when you submit a traffic safety request, if you're looking for, say, for example, a specific area to do speed humps or traffic calming measures, what is DDOT really looking for? Do you want smaller parcels of areas, or do you want larger areas? And then when you come out and do those safety assessments, how are you determining what time of day you're looking at those? Because oftentimes I find that DDOT is not looking at the area at the time of day when the problem is mostly an issue. So if you could address those 3 points, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, sure. And if I fall off track, please bring me on back to speed. But the first question you asked was about photos. It is more effective to upload pictures for the engineers to be able to review and reference in regards to any traffic safety issue. And when you go onto the website and do the 311 request, it does allow you to upload. I believe it's like in the right-hand side, it's a little bottom arrow, and you can add pictures to kind of speak to whatever the concern is. What I also want to highlight that is helpful, which I work very closely with Commissioner Lucio, and she can definitely tell you, if there is something that is and all safety concerns are important, but if there is something specifically that I know everyone feels like each service request they submit is very personal to them and very important, but if there is something that just, you feel like really needs to get eyes, DDOT needs to have eyes on, I am the liaison, so you are free to contact me. Commissioner Lucio does it all the time. You can email me, call me, I'm available, and I will either touch bases with Kelly, who is my manager, or we will even contact or ping the engineers and say, hey, I know this is still pending, but hey, there's been maybe 3 crashes today, related to a service request that was only put in a week ago. We really need to get some eyes on this sooner. So I would encourage everyone to work with me, or residents to work with their ANC commissioners so that you guys can reach out to DDOT personally and say, hey, this issue needs to be looked at a little sooner than 130 days. And if DDOT is capable or able to do that, we definitely will do that, because not all assessments take 130 days. Commissioner Lucio can speak to that. Sometimes you're able to contact us, and depending on the concern, we can look at it sooner. The second question you asked, you have to remind me what it is. Can you repeat it again?
Sure. It had to do with when you submit a request, what is DDOT looking for in terms of area scope? Because we've been told 2 different things about either submit them in smaller sections or larger sections. We've been told both on different occasions.
Okay, well, I can clarify that very clearly. So anytime that there is a safety concern, it has to be specifically for that intersection. So it can, let's say you are looking at covering 5 blocks of concerns. You want speed humps on 5 blocks, or you want traffic calming measures on 5 blocks. You have to submit a service request for each intersection. DDOT sometimes will combine those service requests and do what is called a corridor study, meaning, hey, we noticed that there is consistent traffic calming issues, are speeding issues in this neighborhood, and an engineer will determine, but that is up to them. I can't say specifically. I'm sure it depends on the area, and it depends on the actual concern, whether people are running stop signs or speeding down the street and maybe like avoiding a main road and going down a local road. It depends. So there is no one flat answer to that, but to answer specifically to your question about service requests, you do have to do a service request for each intersection.
Okay, and the third part to my question was in regard to determining what time of day they come to review it, because oftentimes we've had them come, or we've put in a request and they've come in at a time that wasn't a time of day when you're going to see that issue happen. Go ahead.
Sorry, I actually agree with you. I think me and you have talked about that, right? As far as putting in a service request and even stating, it'll ask you the time of day, it'll allow you to add additional details. I can't completely speak to saying, you know, why sometimes engineers will come out at a different time than what is suggested by the resident, other than their availability. That would be my assumption, that it's the availability, but I definitely will take that back to DDOT. That has been an ongoing issue about, you know, a commissioner or a resident stating, hey, this is a concern that's happening at 8 o'clock in the morning. However, the assessment's done at 3 in the afternoon. But again, I think that that speaks to a more so an availability issue than anything else. But I think the logic behind it maybe is not effective. You know, if they're not coming at the time that you're saying the problem exists, then it's kind of like, why are they coming? Because they're not going to be able to witness, you know, what you all see during that time of day. So it is something that we're aware of. I can't completely speak to it. I'm not an engineer. I don't even work in that department directly, but we do suggest, outside of even a 311 request, hey, this resident or this commissioner is stating that this problem is occurring during a certain time. Now, whether they actually show up at that time or not, it's clearly, you know, their choice. But I will relay that message after this meeting. When I debrief and send some notes over, I will definitely reiterate that that is an ongoing concern.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fletcher, you're up, and Commissioner Lockett, and then Commissioner Rojas.
Yeah, Mr. Baker, thank you so much for your comments, your answers. It's helpful. I know that you are just the intermediary between the engineers and the community, so I appreciate, you know, your transparency. Um, I just wanted to know regarding the blind resident within my single member district, would you be willing to come out to the community? Because I think it'll be important for him to hear from you regarding this, just so we can continue to provide proper expectations, never overpromise, you know, but at the same time, just let him know that this is something that the city, that you and others are working on, because I think for him, he just feels as if no one's hearing him, and I hate to just go back to him with basically saying the same thing without any kind of improvement. So I know that that would be beneficial, and even if you couldn't come in person, maybe we can set up a brief call or something that he could, so that way he knows that we are working on this and this is in motion. Would you be open to that, sir?
I would have to talk to Kelly, my supervisor, about that, and I'll tell you why. Right?
Sure.
Everyone knows the process, including me. I'm aware that and that doesn't come out from my mouth. That comes from DDOT. That there's a 130-day process with that issue, right? So you've already relayed that message to him. I've done, I believe, 2 other meetings where this has come up, and it's been something that's been shared. So I don't really know that it will be effective, or I'm trying to find the proper word, a productive conversation to keep reiterating the same thing to him without being able to provide additional information. What I can do, and I don't know that it will change anything. I can again reach out to you know, DDOT engineers internally and see where they are with status on that concern. But I've already been told flat out, concrete, that it is going to be a 130-day assessment. So if that answers your question.
It does. Look, I appreciate you. Whatever we can do, I just know that I'm going to go back to this individual and let him know the updates. And I know that's not going to be sufficient for him, but it is what it is. So let's just keep in touch. The community is aware of this. I'm aware of this, and we'll just keep doing what we can regarding the issue. But I'm happy to know that it's at least top of your mind and others, and hopefully this will get rectified before 130 days.
I agree, and
yeah.
I agree with you. And I think because we have had multiple meetings regarding this issue, I don't want anyone to feel like DDOT is blowing it off. They are actively working on some considerations. I actually mentioned on a meeting before where internally, I kind of mentioned off the record that they were considering a hawk signal at this intersection. But what becomes a problem with something like that is because it is not a definite decision for DDOT. People had concerns about the hawk signal. Everyone was not in support of that. So I think where DDOT is at this point, as far as, you know, throwing out suggestions before we come to a solid determination, it just may not be a productive conversation. So once the assessment is complete and DDOT knows how they're going to move forward to solve this issue, we'll wait to that time and then share our findings.
Sorry, thank you very much, sir. That's it for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Lockett.
Mr. Baker, Mr. Baker, Mr. Baker. We have talked, and I explained to you once before, I am a retired engineer and tech for the federal government, okay? And what you just said in the letter and you're saying to us now has threw a whole lot of chaos into how we're going to communicate with DDOT. You just mentioned to us that all those tickets that were put in that are not getting serviced the last 2 or 3 years have to be resubmitted and done again. That's putting another 130 days on it with the possibility where some of the states that had it, that someone can get killed. Has it taken DDOT that long, all these years, to realize that they're understaffed? Just like Commissioner Washington said, 3 or 4 years ago, someone should have been asking the mayor or whoever the council member overseeing that, we need funding. This is what we're running into. We wait to this minute where I got a project that I know at any moment somebody can get killed that we've talked about. And I can't get a response. One response I got was they told me they did a violation study. You know what I was told? We can't find the papers. Now, how are we supposed to sit here and have some confidence in DDOT and they don't have confidence in themselves? We're the taxpayers. All we want is some service. But what you just did by putting that letter out for us to work by, it's completely, as young people might say, off the hook. There's no way if a traffic sign fall down or a light sign and somebody call it in, they should have to wait 130 days to get it repaired. There's a leak right on Sergeant Road now that's been sitting here for going on 3 weeks. And I've called it in to the deputy director. And the people in the neighborhood called it in, even when it was accident. And nobody's done anything yet. And if it gets cold, it freezes, and there's a hazard for somebody getting killed. Why is there any way that we can sign a petition as the ANC commissioners in this area to get them to change this? Because this is not functional. This is not something that the community can live with. Again, I stress the point. 3 years we've been trying to deal with a problem. Now you're going to put another 1.5 years on it. How do you think the community is going to feel? That's unexpected. That's unacceptable. I'll be honest with you. I'm a little disturbed by what you're saying here now with us, when we're supposed to sit here and watch you change the requirements, that none of these requirements benefit us. And when I get in the field with any of your representatives to come out here, even you, I'm not talking to an engineer. None of you are engineers. You take this and take it back to the office, and then the engineers, I guess, process it, and then the deputy director, somebody has to sit here and give you a decision. We were told a number of times, ask Kelly Olson, she'll tell you the same thing, that they were going to do this, and it went on for almost 1.5 years, only to be told by the deputy director, oh, we're not going to do it. Now, tell me why. What is your reason and justification for not giving us the service that your field operator said? That's confusing to me. That's what the purpose of the field operator is, to take the information, gather it from the community, take it back, sort it out, and if they pass it to an engineer, the engineer will take and reschedule, look at it, and see what's best for them, and give you an answer. But we don't even get that. I don't even get to meet an engineer out here. So I apologize, but I'm gonna be honest with you. DDOT needs to step out, ask for some money like Commissioner Washington, and get this ship on the road, because if not, the people in this community is not going to keep putting up with this. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing this, Commissioner Locke. And I do understand the community's frustration. I understand as a resident, like I said, I totally understand the concerns. to speak to a couple things that you brought up. I guess to clarify the first thing, as far as the 311 service requests go, not all service requests have to be resubmitted under the new process. So if they have already been looked at and opened, which I'm sure a lot have not, but let's say a service request was submitted before this process and a work order was opened on it. The work order doesn't disappear. The service request still will move forward. But if there is a service request that was not reviewed before the process, it unfortunately probably doesn't roll over. So I can totally understand. And to be honest, I don't create this process. This process was in the works before I even started with DDOT. So I only speak as a spokesperson for DDOT, if you will. But in order to work with the commissioners, because I think the best way to be productive in conversations like this, because I'm only going to give you blanket statement answers on behalf of DDOT, but where I can be more effective with you personally or individually, as I have been with Commissioner Lucio, you are free to call me. You are free to email me directly about concerns, and I can put eyes on those concerns independently. I can't promise you what DDOT decides to do, right? But I can communicate your concerns, which is my job. But I'm not DDOT. I know I'm a representative of DDOT, but I do not make any rules, or I am no more powerful than you all are in this forum. But I do understand the frustrations, and I do understand how, the expectation for DDOT needs to be higher. I think with this new TSI process, I think that is why it was created. I think it is to hold DDOT accountable. This timeline that DDOT has now with this 130 days, although it can extend to an 8-month period, it is a concrete timeline.
What's the purpose of bringing it out to the community and you don't have anything in decision making? You can't give any recommendations.
You know what? That's a good question, but at the end of the day, Commissioner Lockett, it is just my job. So we can go back and forth about your frustrations about that, but it's not productive, right? We're not getting anywhere with that comment. But I do understand your frustrations. But again, I'm the liaison. So you give me information, I relay it to DDOT, and DDOT determines what happens. I do not. So I apologize that I do not have decision-making power, but it just is what it is.
But
I just want to.
I apologize if it sounds insulting, but as I said before, you're just not getting things done, okay? And the people.
Well, it's not me. I don't know what to tell you again. It's not me not getting things done. So I even understand your concern about Sargent and Emerson, right? I have been involved in that process, and I have done the best of my abilities to engage where my role allows me to. You can't be upset with me because
I am not upset with you, sir.
Well, you're saying I'm not doing my job, but I'm telling you,
you're not doing your job. What I'm saying is you're sending you out to the field, and you can't make a decision. If you do, and you take it back, your decision is thrown out the window because somebody above you is going to make the decision, and we don't even know when or where or how.
He can't
You are
make
correct.
decisions. He can't make
I
decisions.
cannot.
He does not make decisions.
No, you're right. I know that.
Mr. Chair, I think Lieutenant
I
Evans,
apologize.
I think
Okay.
gave a great idea.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, I'm going to concur with Commissioner Fletcher's about to say. I think this is a good idea from Lieutenant. Go ahead, Commissioner Fletcher.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, wait a minute,
Commissioner
wait.
Lucio.
I'm the chair here. Hold on 1 minute. I want to just sort of bring some closure to that conversation, that part of the conversation. And then I want to move to Commissioner Rojas, and then and I see Commissioner Washington hand is back up for another round. If you all have some ideas about something that we should do after Commissioner Washington speak, then Commissioner Fletcher, I will recognize you. Commissioner Rojas, you have the floor.
All right, well, thank you for coming on, Mr. Baker. So I just have a couple questions, because obviously, I mean, the big thing, what we're getting from all the commissioners really is that, the process and everything obviously is a little extended and flawed, especially when, like, in Commissioner Fletcher's neighborhoods, somebody's lives and safety is at stake. So I just wanted to understand the process a little bit more. So I know you mentioned how certain things can become expedited and things like that, and some might not take up 130 days. Like, why is that? Is there like a screening that's done by DDOT, like a preliminary screening that goes into, measuring things as importance wise, or is it just, whoever is talking the loudest and brings it up to you? I just wanted to get, an understanding of why certain things are done quicker, why certain things aren't. And then also one more thing too, as far as the 130-day process, what that entails, like how much of that 130 days is actually the engineers doing their work, and then how much of it is just processing as well. So that's what I just wanted to understand as far as it. And then I feel like once we understand it more, even just knowing who to talk to, because obviously, like you said, I get, you can't make certain decisions on things like that, and you're reporting on behalf of DDOT, but who we can talk to make improvements to the process, or somebody who does have the control to make those decisions.
Great question, Commissioner Rojas. To touch on your first question of, who kind of decides on when to expedite things or not. I'll give you an example. Sometimes it really just, there is no process with expediting. I'll be honest, there is no process. The only thing we can guarantee the community is the TSI process, which is 130 days. If there is something that I had an issue last week, for example, there were street lights out in an alley. There was a service request that was already processed, and it had been close to the 130 days and no work had been done. I did reach out to the engineers and let them know, hey, this is an ongoing issue. I'm not sure if you guys have eyes on it yet, etc. They were able to expedite that and get it done in 3 days. Now, I can't say why. I would assume that maybe, so each engineer gets assigned so many cases, right? Maybe on that day or within that brief period, a few days, something else fell through and they were able to complete that sooner, right? But there is no process in consideration for anything that would be expedited. I think the logic is that they try to get the work done as soon as they can. But again, to be productive, I think the most effective way to try to get a service request heard sooner than later is to contact me. It does not mean that things will get expedited, but what it does allow is a person within DDOT to call that office or ping that person or involve a supervisor and say, hey, this is an issue. Someone has reached out to me, the liaison, about a concern. Can you look at this? And they will respond to me with either a very standard statement of, hey, allow the 130 days, which I'm assuming typically means that it's on their list of things to do and they don't have the capacity to move it up on the list. Or they may say, hey, give me a few days and I'll get back to you. And in that few days of getting back to me, they may have an update or they may be able to act sooner, but there is no process in that. The only process that we have where we can guarantee the community is 130 days, which is a TSI one-pager that DDOT officially released. I didn't catch your second question, if you could repeat it.
Yeah, no, it was just, as far as for the 130 days, I mean, you kind of answered it, like, what portion of that, I know it varies by case, but how much of it is processing and then how much of it is like just stalling, and how much of the 130 days is, the engineers actually going out and analyzing the issues and things like that. And then if it, obviously the process takes a while, and I know you guys are, full capacity, working in full capacity, but, what do you, in your opinion, what are some ways that we can try to come up with a solution to, whether it's getting more funding, who we can talk to learn how to expedite the process, or, things like that. What do you think the best step is to fix this up a little bit, especially time-wise, funding, things like that?
To speak to the timeline issue, I know you mentioned like how much of it is actually assessing and installing, et cetera. So the first 130 days would be the actual assessment time. I can't speak to like when the engineers physically actually go out within that 130 days and go back to the drawing board. So like, let's say, I'll give you an example to make this more, I guess, palatable. You want to have an always stop control. We send an engineer out. The engineer assesses the intersection. The engineer may take, let's say, a few days to do that assessment. They go back to DDOT. They have to draw up a full report. That report includes maps. That report includes coordinates. It includes a multitude of things that they have to put together in what some would say a packet form, right? So we put that packet form together. We notify the resident within that 130 days and say, hey, we're going to, we approve this work. We're going to do an installation of always stop control at the intersection of these two blocks, right? Then we do a work order. The work order goes to another department, and the work order goes out to that department to get the work done. However, also I want to mention, DDOT does not physically do all of the work. We have contractors as well. So for a lot of work that is done within DDOT, it's not all physically done with our engineers. We have outsourced contractors. So that has to be considered when we schedule things, because it also is within their availability and the contracts that we have in place. If that answers your question.
Yeah, that does. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great.
Commissioner Washington, you have the floor.
I don't know if I need to say anything further, other than the fact that, you know, 2 months ago, we started to request a meeting with the new director to come to our meeting so that we could discuss the issues and concerns that we had within 5A as it related to transportation, safety, and so forth. 2 months, we couldn't even get him in there because either he had something else to do or someone else or someplace or the mayor needed him. Then we finally scheduled.
They promised he was coming.
He's been promising he's coming. Exactly. Promised and then canceled at the last minute. And then they decided they're going to send the deputy director, who had only been on the job 6 months, who didn't have a clue. She came in, said she was going to take all this information and take it back to the director from our meeting. We never heard anything back. We never had a chance to give any input to the director about all of these different changes that are in place. I mean, I think we were done a disadvantage because the director never came back to address our, or to listen to our concerns. And Delando, this is not on you. This is on the director. It's on the department. It's not on you. Because if he can go and take care, as one of the commissioners says, emergencies, which he did in my commission, and address issues from someone else from another ward or a group of PTA from a school to address their issues and put a stoplight in immediately within a couple of weeks, he can do the same thing. Other things can be done too. And I'm speaking of this, Delando, because you know what I've been going through in my single member district. Okay, but I think it all goes back to, as I said, we need to send a letter to whoever chairs the Department of Transportation, put our concerns in there, make it clear that the director promised to come and never did. We need to put that out there. It needs to be addressed.
I agree. I agree with you, Commissioner Washington. And I think that unfortunately, and I want to be careful what I say on behalf of DDOT as an employee, but I do agree with you. I think the best way to get someone's attention in cases like this is to create what I call an email thread and CC everyone on it who, you know, who has maybe been avoiding, you know, being included in things. So it happens all the time, and to speak to other SMDs, that's typically how they get responses.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. I think Commissioner Fletcher now, commissioners, I want to start trying to bring this conversation to an end now. And I think Commissioner Fletcher is getting ready to offer up something maybe in furtherance of the recommendation that Commissioner Washington just made. Commissioner Fletcher, you have the floor.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor this any longer. I think we're all on the same page here. I think we need to send a letter. I reached out to DDOT spokesman Jermaine Vigil to see if that could help, you know, us get some connections with Director Lott. But we need to just do the letter. We need to also send a letter to DDOT, we need to send a letter to Councilmember Mary Che, who oversees transportation. That's what we need to do. I think the community needs to see that we're ready to do this together. And so, Mr. Chair, I just say that we move forward with that as soon as possible. So I make a motion, I move that ANC 5A drafts a letter to both Director Lott and to Councilmember Mary Che about the DDOT issues we have in our ANC. Number one being the traffic halt signal on South Dakota and 8th Street. That's my motion, Mr. Chair.
Can I make a friendly amendment to the motion, Mr. Chair?
Well, I okay, I'm like,
Well, let me say that I have a motion on the floor.
Hasn't been
That
seconded.
motion has not yet been seconded.
Second.
Was there a second?
Mr.
second.
Lockett seconded.
Okay, so that motion has now been seconded. Now, do you have a friendly amendment? Is that what I'm hearing?
I do. I would like to add that within the letter, each of us, as best we can, make a list of all of the different requests we have put forth within our community in the last year and a half or two, to be and addendums to that letter as identification of all of the outstanding issues that we are still waiting for responses or work on.
Yeah, a couple of things.
I don't think, excuse me 1 minute. I don't think the Commissioner Fletcher, as the maker of the motion, you accept that as it sounds like a friendly amendment, just sort of adding substance to the motion.
absolutely, Mr. Chair. I do accept that friendly amendment.
All right. So Commissioner Lockett, I see your hand up. Is it a question on this motion?
No, not on the motion. I just want to apologize to Mr. Baker if it sounded as though I insulted you.
All right, hold on. We're gonna do that in a minute.
Okay.
But right now we're in the middle of a motion and we need
Sorry.
to finalize that. And then once I do that, I will come back to anybody have any closing remarks. All right, so commissioners, we have a motion on the floor to adopt a letter to the chair of the DDOT committee, Public Service Committee, and to Mary Che and to the director of DDOT, expressing our concerns and including in that a list of by SMD of requests that have gone unanswered. I just want to add to that we want to get that letter out before March the 3rd. So I would appreciate help in terms of getting that letter drafted. Commissioner Washington on the motion?
Yes, on the motion. Could we also include in that all of the correspondence that we got as it relates to the meetings that were scheduled and canceled by the director of DDOT?
I don't think there's a problem with that.
I accept that friendly amendment as well. And
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll work with you to get, and everyone else, but I'll work with you to make sure we get this out by March 3rd or earlier.
Okay. And I'll provide the information that I have on those meetings.
All right, now that's assuming that we all gonna vote for it. We haven't voted.
That is assuming, yes.
All right, so
I don't think it's a big assumption.
so all right, you've heard the motion. The motion's been clarified and updated. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Let the record reflect that that motion was unanimous. Commissioner Lockett, in closing out this part of the conversation, you have the floor.
I just want to apologize to Mr. Baker if it sounded as though I was insulting you. I apologize to you if that's the case, but the pattern that I see, that you're here at the ground level communicating with us. You take it in, it goes nowhere. Then I see another pattern that the engineers get it and they do the work they're supposed to. Then it goes to the deputy director, and they cancel it. What's the purpose of the engineers then? They give you the information. So I apologize, Mr. Baker. I'm just not accustomed to the way DDOT is operating. Thank you.
I understand that. And I apologize if maybe I came off a bit harsh as well. To speak to Commissioner Washington's suggestion, I think that this is, of course, and you've said this before in meetings, that this is the best way to take this up to the next level as far as getting eyes on this. I think that, you know, coming up with a letter, I think also having email threads with, you know, the people that you guys have all stated, you know, during this meeting, CC them in these meetings, you know, hold them accountable, put them in up. And again, I want to be very careful as an employee, but if you put people in a public space, right, where everyone can see and attention is on, you know, these issues that have been outstanding, even if it's just a lack of response or a lack of accountability showing up where you said you have, you know, it can cause a little bit of sweat. So I think that you guys are going the right way. And I think that the suggestion that Commissioner Washington has made is very common in other ANCs. So I will also say that. So I think that you guys are on the right path to being heard. And I also want to say that it is frustrating for me as an employee where, you know, you guys communicate things to me that you want done, and then I go back to work, and then I have to come back here and I don't have answers for you. So you guys are not the only ones frustrated. You know, I feel helpless as well. You know, I feel helpless because it's only so much I can do. But I understand that, you know, that is just what it is. So I think that Commissioner Washington's suggestion is, I think that's the best way for you guys to move forward with your approach.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. And I just wanted to take the time to add to the comments of Commissioner Lockett concerning our frustrations. And you just happened to be, I know you came here tonight thinking you were bringing us some information. You weren't on the agenda. You just gonna give a nice little presentation and then you're okay and you were gonna be gone. But unfortunately, because of everything that we've talked about here tonight, your presentation, that TSI chart is insulting to us. And then to add insult to injury, then you kind of make the remark, you know, kind of that this document here is supposed to be putting in place some kind of accountability. And so what we can see from everything that we've heard here is that this document here sort of limits your accountability, sort of lessens DDOT's accountability to us. And so we don't appreciate that. And then the other thing on top of that is the comment and the total disrespect and disregard that we feel we have received from DDOT, you know, with regard to reaching out and trying to share information. That's all we want to do. You say you can't answer our question. We've been asking to get someone here who could answer our questions, and they promise us they're going to come, and then on the day of the meeting some emergency come up and then they can't be here. So those kinds of things are very frustrating to us. We appreciate the work that you do and the other workers like you that come out to us and try to keep us informed. And so we understand your frustrations, and again, we appreciate your work and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. I appreciate that. And I do want to highlight that I definitely did not anticipate coming on this meeting tonight and just doing a presentation and getting off. I definitely expected this conversation, but you know what? I'm actually happy that the conversation happened the way that it did, because as Commissioner Washington has mentioned in several other meetings, it's not my place on behalf of DDOT to tell you guys how to, you know, kind of manage that next step, but it's what needs to happen. So I'm glad that, you know, you guys have came to that resolution here tonight.
We thank you, and you are indeed a professional employee. We appreciate you, and again, like we say, we look forward to working with you.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. The next item on the agenda, Nokomis, I know you, I heard you were here, and we've just been sort of going on and on. And what I want to do now, Nokomis, is sort of turn to you, since we already heated up, and let's hear what you got to say.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me on. I won't hold you too long. I just want to inform you guys that both remind you that, you know, the district indoor mask requirement will be dialed back on March the 1st. So, you know, there.
Okay, wait a minute. You said the mask requirement would be what now?
It would be dialed back, meaning that you would not, you know, be required to have your mask on in certain facilities. So and that's regarding like restaurant, bars, sports and entertainment venues, gym, recreation center, indoor athlete facility, and etc. But there is there is still a facility that still will be required. I mean, that require you to have masks at, and that is any businesses that want to use that require use of masks by employees or customers, schools, childcare facilities, and libraries, healthcare, medical facility, public transportation, taxis, and rideshare vehicles, and DC government facility with direct interaction between employees and the public. So, and also, as you guys know, this past February the 15th, then you would no longer require residents to be vaccinated or show their vaccination card. To move on from that, I want to inform you you guys about the mayor and MPD collaborative. I know I haven't been getting a lot of calls about, you know, the uptick of crimes and carjacking. So on last Friday, the mayor and Chief Conti has announced a homicide reduction partnership, which is a collaborative effort to reduce violent crime through strategic prevention and focused enforcement. And with this new partnership, MPD will focus on resources and intelligence lead policing strategy in collaboration with local and federal law enforcement and criminal justice partner, DC government agency, and community partners. So this will be more of, you know, not just a local government thing, but, you know, a nationwide government from different agencies, you know, that can, like, you know, chip in and help out to prevent the violence that's been occurring. Other than that, I just, you know, I want to, you know, in my update there, you know, just take any like questions or concerns that you guys may have that I can, like, you know, give you feedback on.
Okay, Nokomis, thank you for that update. I'll probably have a question for you, but I'm going to look around to see. I see some of the commissioners. Commissioner Lucio, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Nokomis, for that information. I do have a question in terms of the mask mandate. You know, as you probably are aware, as the mayor is probably aware, the jurisdictions surrounding DC are beginning to lift their mask mandates, not only in public spaces, but also in schools. That is the hot topic of conversation. And I have not heard a word out of the mayor's office as to her plan for lifting that restriction in schools. And I had a lengthy conversation today with the head of our school, who's very concerned. You know, obviously he's interested in maintaining the safety of everyone around him and, you know, understands all that, but truly believes that, you know, the long-term implications of these masks on little kids is going to have much longer issues in terms of, you know, psychological development and overall development. And so, you know, I realize there's only, you know, several more months left in school, but I just wanted to know if you've heard anything, or if you know if the mayor's going to be, you know, meeting on this or planning to discuss this or thinking about lifting that, or any insight you can give onto that would be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't gotten any, you know, information or, you know, updates on whether or not she will be, you know, lifting the mandate just specifically for the school. But so far, as for right now, you know, we are still been told that, you know, school will still be required to wear their mask.
Okay, well, if you could at least express that this issue has been raised at the ANC meeting, and, you know, ask her if she'd be willing to, you know, look into this. I mean, clearly, you know, most of Virginia is beginning to lift their mask mandate in schools, and I realize that's not the district and it's a different government and there's different things about it, but you know, there are places in Montgomery in Maryland that are as well. So I think it's something that we really need to look at for the long-term benefits of the kids, because this has been very tough, especially on the little kids. And we need to really, determine, what the rate of spread is amongst those communities. And if this is something we really can, I think, begin to look at in a safe way. I think we should.
Okay, copy. And I circle back around to you tomorrow if I get an update about them.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Lockett, and then Commissioner Fletcher.
Mr. Hunter, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, sir?
For old man, I ain't complaining. Okay. It was a ticket put in by me as well as two of the residents. There's a white Tahoe on Emerson Street between 12th and 11th. 8, maybe 6, 7 months now. And then people are starting to take parts of it. And the government would not come and remove it. I did see it one time, somebody put tickets on it. And that is it. And the vehicle, I walked past it today, the vehicle's there and people are starting to break the vehicle down for parts. But I also have a question. In here in North Michigan Park, I see quite a bit of people now running to the sewer repairs. And these contractors are coming in and they're actually doing the tearing up the sidewalks as well as the street. Does the DC government have an obligation to come out and inspect that after it's done? No?
Yes, I will. Yeah, I will. Yes, I will assume so.
Because it's happening quite a bit.
Said a sidewalk, right?
Sidewalk in the streets. They're cutting into the streets and the sidewalks and running new drain lines, sewer lines for the people's homes, because they are galvanized pipes and they were built in 1940 something. So it is a possibility a whole lot of them could be having blockages and things of that nature. And I just want to make sure that they don't leave the streets and the sidewalks all tore up after they've done their work and walk away. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I can just tell you, I think in the normal processes, when utilities and things like that mess up the road, they have to follow a process. They have a permitting process, and all of that includes repairing the area once they're finished. So, but Commissioner Fletcher, you're up.
Yeah, that actually just kind of piggybacking off of Commissioner Lockett was talking about, because in my single member district, right near where Mr. Reese lives, Carmen Williams, please make sure Mr. Reese hears this. But right where Mr. Reese lives, the alleyway has recently been renovated and done over, which is great. But there's a lot of debris, there's a lot of trash and other things that's left behind after the alleyway has been completed. Mr. Reese is a constituent in my S&D, avid member of North Michigan Park Civic Association. He calls me repeatedly about this. So, Nicolas, I just want to bring it to your attention. I'm not sure if that's something that DPW. I know I didn't want to talk to Mr. Baker anymore because I know he got a lot from us tonight. But I just want to bring it to your attention around debris and other trash that's needed to be picked up after the alleyway has been completed. It's on around the 700 block of Decatur Street Northeast.
311. 311.
Look, Commissioner Washington, I hear that, and we're going to put the request in with 311. But I told Mr. Reese that I was going to bring it to the mayor's office attention tonight as well. So that's all I'm doing, real quick.
Can you take the street name again?
Yes, 700, and I'll make sure that the 311 request, if it's not put in, I'll make sure that it's in by tomorrow, and I'll give you that number. But it's 700 block of Decatur Street Northeast. It's the alleyway right there.
Okay.
All right, Nokomis, you got anything else for us?
That would be all. I will be sending out an email to you shortly, requesting for a budget presentation for April.
Okay.
Yes, you'll just be on the lookout for an email after that. But other than that, that would be all.
Okay. All right. Thank you again, as always, Nokomis, for a good report.
I'm sorry, real quick. So Nokomis, you're asking to speak at our April meeting on the budget?
No, I'm asking for a presentation. So I believe, and I haven't gotten a confirmation yet, but I believe someone will be there to speak regarding the budget.
Okay, so just let me know and if I need to get that on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thanks, Nokomis. Have a nice evening. Okay. All right, commissioners, we have one more item on the agenda, and it is the review of the EYA Historic Preservation application, the letter of support. Commissioner Lucio, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. And to Jason's from UIA, I apologize for the lengthy time waiting you've had, but I hope you're still on somewhere.
Hi, I'm here. How are you?
Thanks, Jason.
We'll try to put a lighter spin on this. That was a long last hour for you guys.
Jason, do you need me to give you sharing?
I think I have it actually. It's green, so I think that means I have it. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Nope, I don't have it. Sorry.
I was gonna say I didn't think so. All right, let me make you a co-host real quick. Okay, you're all set. And Jason, can you send me your presentation when you get a chance?
Sure.
Thanks.
One second. Sorry. Okay, you guys see the screen?
Yep.
So I know a bunch of you. For those I haven't met before, I'm Jason Serino with EYA, Vice President of Development. And I've been working for several years now closely with Evan Goldman, who many of you know as well, on the project at the Josephite Seminary, which we call Michigan Park. And I just wanted to, I'm here tonight to update you all on the historic designation application for the Josephite Seminary building and the grounds around it. And just give you an update on that process and what's coming up next. So just to really quickly familiarize, we are developing the 80 townhomes on the right side of the screen here. We're well underway in that development, getting ready for our first settlements of units in this area, closest to Sargent, and working our way basically up across the site towards 12th Street. Roads are in, a lot of the utilities are in, several buildings are under construction, and we'll be, we've started some of our public improvement work, and we'll be continuing in the next couple of months to really get sidewalk repairs, crosswalk repairs, some turning movement adjustments that we committed to at the corner of Allison and 12th Street, all that underway in the next couple of months, as well as delivering the park that sits over here alongside the seminary building. The seminary property, so the area kind of outlined here in red, is part of the application. This is the area, and I'll show you the actual boundary map in a couple slides of what was part of the application. So this is the area that we're putting under this, applying to put under this historic designation. It was part of our PUD approvals that we go about this. It was deemed a historically significant place at that time and worthy of going through this process. And so we got the ANC support at that time, and had discussions on, you know, that support meant you supported the application, but we thought it was appropriate to come back before you now that the hearing is actually scheduled for that, and just kind of get that support again and go through this process so that you guys are all aware of what's going on and why. So just real quickly, and there's a whole report on this. If you don't already have it, I'm happy to send it to you. It was done by our consultants, and it's part of the application. But the site, the seminary building and the grounds is an important historic site. It contains both this building, the entirety of it, the majority of it, which was built in 1929, and then the West Wing addition, which was built many years later. It's under the Georgian Revival and Neo-Georgian style, and it was one of the reasons, besides its significance in the area and in DC, is it was also designed by a nationally recognized and important architectural firm that many of their buildings are deemed themselves being designed by them as historic resources, and that's the firm of McGinnis and Walsh. So, that's a big part, and their work is a big part on why this is also a significant building. It's been in the neighborhood, known as Little Rome. I know it's not frequently known as that anymore, but it's been an important landmark in that neighborhood for almost 100 years now. It was part of a collection of Catholic institutions that shaped the development of the area in the first part of the 20th century. And as I mentioned, it was concluded at the time of our PUD that by the District of Columbia that the seminary clearly kind of met their criteria for designation, and we were asked to, on behalf of the Josephites, move forward with this application. So I think that's an important point. We are going through the process on their behalf. They are the applicant. They are, they desire to move this forward and put the ground into this historic designation as well. And then just kind of to summarize all this and bring it to a head for you guys on what we're asking for tonight. So up top here, the first piece, I apologize, sorry. The first item up here on top, this is directly from the PUD. So it's just showing you our requirement, condition of approval to make this application and submit it. And we are beyond making the submission, we are carrying it through for and on behalf of the Josephites. We submitted the application back in February of last year. And then about 3 weeks ago, we heard from the Historic Preservation Office, and they had scheduled our public meeting on this application for April 28th, 2022. And what it will do, aside from, I'm sorry, my touchpad is really sensitive there, I keep flipping. What it will do, not just giving it the historic designation, but what that means is the building and the grounds, the approximately 4 acres, are designated as historic landmark and preserved indefinitely from future redevelopment. So basically, putting a covenant for future development on the property so that nothing else can happen on that site. The building and the grounds themselves can go through the Historic Preservation Office and request for modifications to the ground or building or updates, and then they would have to be deemed to meet the historical context of the site and the building if they were to get approved, but they'd have to go through that process publicly. It wouldn't be allowed to go through any type of redevelopment. It would have to stay in the nature at which it was put under the historic designation. So as was mentioned at the onset, we're here tonight asking for your guys' support. We're working on drafting a letter and working with Emily to get that out to the group on what that support letter could say or look like. And then we just ask you guys to consider that tonight. And I don't know if you'd be voting on it tonight, but either way, we could come back for a vote on another night if it wasn't on the agenda to vote tonight. And with that, if you have any questions on this or the process and where it stands, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lucio, having heard the presentation, I know you provided a letter in advance of the meeting. What is your pleasure?
Commissioner Edwards, I would like to ask the fellow commissioners who all have had a chance to review the letter that was sent them today that we support this request and submit the letter as requested by UIA.
And commissioners, I would just want to add and reiterate the point that Jason already made. This whole discussion about the historic nature of this project and the expectation that this part of the application would be upcoming. Should not be any surprise to us because it is something that we did discuss in detail as we were sort of considering this application. So was your statement?
I'm
in the
gonna
form
make
of
a motion. Yep, I'm gonna make a motion that that ANC 5A support this request and submit a letter.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that ANC 5A support the application of the St. Joseph Seminary for the historic landmark designation for this site. All those in favor of this application indicate by saying aye.
Chairman Edwards, I see that
Aye.
Commissioner Lockett has his hand up. I'm not sure if there's discussion on
There is
this.
discussion. Commissioner Lockett? You're muted, I guess.
Again, I just had a couple of questions. That's all.
Okay.
Okay. And with the Josephite seeking for historical of the place, how do they benefit from that? What benefits it goes with being historical?
It was deemed at the time of the application to be a public benefit, not necessarily a benefit to the Josephites. You know, obviously being a religious institution, they're allowed to continue to operate the use within inside the building under the way they intended to. And I think, you know, from their standpoint, it's more of a gesture to the neighborhood that, you know, we're putting it under this designation willingly. And, you know, that basically in perpetuity puts the covenant on the grounds that no redevelopment of the site can happen. So it will remain, whether you view it as a historic institution, architecturally significant institution, or just a staple of the neighborhood, it will remain that way in perpetuity. So it's almost cementing their legacy, whether they're the users of the site or not, that it will continue to look and appear to the neighborhood as it always has. So they're not gaining a benefit per se out of it.
They are already a nonprofit organization, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, there's no additional added to the nonprofit because you're turning historical, is that correct?
In their benefit, I think that's what they get nothing out of putting it up for this application. No, it's coming at a cost. There are legal bills and there's the historic study and all that to do that process, which is what our commitment to them was, that we do that through this process, but there's nothing they gain out of it.
Okay.
And then I'm not sure, but the neighborhood, I think, in some manner, with regard to the building and the structure, the historic preservation designation of that site will secure, you know, some of the architect and some other stuff related to this whole site. So
yeah, it keeps the building in its current state. Obviously, it would have to go under repairs by the Josephites, or if there was a different owner at the time, but it couldn't be changed to look like something else. I think another important point, and it was kind of, it's obviously related, but there's another public access easement that we're required to put on the property, which we've done, which takes the grounds around the cemetery, so that south lawn basically, and it leaves it open for public access and use. And so that's in perpetuity as well. I know it's always been used by the public. It was never formally done so with an easement or a covenant over it, and it now will have that.
any further discussions? All right, all those in favor of the motion to adopt the letter indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Oh,
Abstentions? Okay, let the record reflect that there was one opposition, I guess 6 support. 7.
Chairman Edwards, if I could,
Kathy.
Chairman Edwards, if I could, I just want to, so while we have Jason on the phone, and I believe Lorenz Wheatley has a question for Jason as well. I wanted just to give a couple brief updates that I know of on the UIA project. They have been giving weekly updates to me that I have been sharing with my constituents, which has been extremely helpful. We've been working with them on reducing the truck traffic. Some of the truck traffic that's been complained about has not been theirs. They've been working with the city. There was a stop work order issue that was an accident that has been, I believe, since cleared up. That was just a sort of a change in policy procedure through the city. And then there is a very bad road repair issue right in front of their property where all the trucks come in, that I reported to DDOT, and DDOT has put in a work order for that and should be finished, if not already, by the end of this week. In addition, as you've driven down 12th Street, you will have seen that the playground is set up. I get questions constantly about when that will open. What I can tell you is I believe they're still waiting for the fencing to be put up around that, which is a safety concern. I'm very happy to say that they are putting in because I happen to mention it, an accessible swing in the playground to be ADA compliant, and that also all the other features, they're going to have the ground covering meets ADA compliance standards as well. But Jason, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the first residents will take ownership at the end of March. Is that right?
That's correct.
The end of March.
But it's looking like the end of March. And on the fence, yeah, we have literally gotten supply chain issue delays on that fence time after time. Unfortunately, we have a specific fence because there is some artwork by a local DC artist that we need to attach to the fence. So there were some specific requirements to the fence. And so until we could do that and make it secure for children along 12th Street to go there and not wander out, yeah, we can't open until that time, but it's looking like April when we'll be able to open that.
Okay. I don't know, Lorenz, I don't know if you had a question for Jason. You're on mute, Lorenz.
Mr. Wheatley, I think, are you there? He had something?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to get clarification on two things. Now, with respect to the South Lawn, there is a driveway there. That is still going to be pretty much private to the Josephites?
Yeah, the public access easement, there's in the actual document, there is a sketch, a description, they call it, of the area that the easement is, and it's the lawn areas, not the actual driveway.
Okay, and then the other question is, do you have any information regarding the availability and timeline for those units that are to be sold to at a reduced cost as per the PUD?
Yeah, so our sales team is some of those are listed and marketed now, and so we go through a process with the city, and I think they're waiting on the initial batch of people to bring in, and it goes both ways, right? It's qualified from the city's end, from our end, and then obviously the purchaser still has to say they're interested in the site. So that process has started, and so it should be soon. I don't believe any have been sold yet as of the last time I heard a few weeks ago from our sales team, but it's on the horizon. We're so far along in sales that that's all happening now.
And with that said, I noticed that some of those units are selling, I mean, the ones that are listed at market rate are going for close to $900,000. Am I correct in that statement?
Yeah, the range varies from the upper 700s to the 900,000s. There's some you get lower than the upper sevens, but it's a lot of things go into that, right? It's what options do you select? Where does the final price play out? But you could get it from the low sevens anywhere to the 900s.
And with that said, does that price increase or variance? Do they carry over to the below market rate housing? So they're still going for what the stated price was in the PUD?
They go at the AMI levels in the PUD, and then the city evaluates those levels annually. They change at kind of inflation rates, not at market rate changes. So if just because the retail market over the last year, might have gone up 15-20%, if they raise their affordable units by 3%, that would be a lot.
Okay, and then just I guess for Mr. Lockett's clarification, I think you did state, Mr. Serrano, that there was this concern among some of us in the neighborhood that, yeah, the Josephites could move out of there. The facade and the outer appearance of the building could still look the same, but then it could be also developed into some kind of multi-unit housing, correct? But I mean, theoretically.
No, because the PUD applied to the entire site, and so the entire site limited the density on the site. They would have to go through a process and read PUD, which I don't, I thought it was pretty clear during our PUD process about the amount of density that could be allowed on the entirety of the site.
So well, maybe you can't answer this, but do you know whether, in fact, because my understanding was that there were some other seminarians from other orders occupying that space now, and I don't know if that would have impact on any considerations for density under the circumstances.
No, you're correct. I don't know the name. I did, and I can't recall it. There were other.
I think they were Paulist or
yeah, that's correct. The Paulist from like Chancellor's Row area. We have the project over there, Brookland. They were there. They had redeveloped their site. They had also come on hard times financially, even after the fact, and they needed a place to stay. The Josephites kind of congregation and membership wasn't as high, and so their numbers have come down over the years, and so they had space in there, and they invited them in to stay. And the use on the site, while the historic designation doesn't set the use on the site as of now is limited under current zoning for the site. The units, so residential units and density on the entire little over 8 acres, which includes our townhomes and the seminary property, that was limited to the 80 townhomes with our PUD, so they don't have the ability to add additional units there unless something were to change in the DC zoning code or future comprehensive plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I do want to give an update that I actually just heard back from DDOT that the pothole issue has been resolved in front of that on 12th Street. They're still looking at some other issues related to that in terms of the cracks and wiring and some other things, but they have filled in the potholes, so that should hopefully be better. And it's my understanding, Jason, that EYA has an obligation to the city to do any street repairs related to the project at the end of the project. Is that right?
We do, and it will be a street, curb, a new sidewalk around all the townhomes, and then we will walk the rest of the sidewalk around the seminary property with DDOT, and any sidewalk that needs repair around that will be done as well.
Thank you. And I believe Commissioner Lockett has a question for you.
You're on mute, Commissioner.
Okay, Jason, how many houses are set aside for low income or moderate income?
There are 10 units for as IZ units.
Okay, and what you just said to me, based on the economy, everything, now some are at the 900s. What happens to the set asides? Price.
As far as pricing?
Yes.
I don't have the numbers. I'm trying to see if I have them here. Sorry. So we have 6 units at 50% AMI and 4 at 80% AMI. I don't know what the current DC AMI levels are, but I would imagine the 50% are in the 200s, maybe high 200s, and the 60% get into the 300s as far as AMI levels. But it's set by the district, so we can't. exceed that pricing level for those units. So 50%.
I believe we have that information from before when you presented
Yeah,
previous time, correct?
it changes annually. So that the
Yeah.
last time I did present that was a while ago. So I don't know what the current prices are. And frankly, maybe the last time we presented might have been 2 cycles ago at this point, since we're in a new year. Not present the project, but the affordability. But
it will be not based on the prices that you just said, up to 900.
no, those are market rate units, and they, regardless of how high the market rate units might appreciate, the affordable set aside units do not appreciate at the same rate. They're controlled by the district.
All right, thank you. That's all I had, Jason. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, well, this look like this has been a very interesting a conversation. Commissioner Lucio, are we finished with that this segment?
We are, Chairman Edwards, so you have a draft of the letter, so I assume you will work on that and then make sure I get a copy of that as well?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
All right. One thing I wanted to do so that we can just formally take a position with regard to this. We received a letter from an email from DDOT earlier in the week, and basically they are in the process of sort of getting into this long-waited transportation study of the North Capitol Street corridor. A lot of you probably know they were talking about the clover leaf there and sort of trying to make some changes, but in my area, that's where I would be concerned. But this is a study that covers the area from North Capitol Street, let's see, from Massachusetts Avenue Northeast to Riggs Road. So they're assembling an advisory committee, and they've asked for designees from our ANC, and we would like to formally recommend Commissioner Washington. She has volunteered and they have accepted, and we want to send them a formal letter sort of indicating that ANC 5A designates her as our representative. Can we do that? Anybody have any reservations regarding that? Commissioner Washington. You have something?
No, I'm good. I have a question not related to that.
Okay, all right. Commissioners, are we okay with that? And I can draft a letter by common consent. Any abstentions? Any opposition?
None from me.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Commissioner Washington, you have the floor. I think you said, I thought
I know, I know after I was. It's just been a long night, so I can't even remember what I was going to say. So don't worry about it. I'll email the commissioners when it comes to me.
Are you talking about the redistricting or no?
No, I'm not talking about the redistricting. Silas made that statement, made those comments tonight. I'll keep my comments on that. I guess the only thing that I did have to say is that I'm a little concerned about decor when we, send emails out and address each other. We should do it with, as related to commissioners. And I know that some have come out where it's just addressing, hey, you guys, or whatever. And I think we need to make sure, we get a lot less respect than what we should be getting now with a lot of these departments that we're dealing with, because a lot of the individuals don't address us as commissioners. They just say, hey, Sandy, or hey, Miss Washington. But I want us as commissioners to be very respectful of each other and make sure that when we're addressing each other, we do say Commissioner so-and-so and sign as commissioner when you're addressing something. That's just a comment of how I feel. I think we deserve the respect of each other and of the residents when they address us as well. That's just a comment that I felt needed to be stated from me.
And thank you for re-emphasizing that, commissioners. We do try to maintain, that level of respect and so forth for each other. So just keep that in mind. I agree with Commissioner Washington 100%. Any further unreadiness? It is
Chairman Edwards, real quick, I believe there's been a request by Commissioner McDuffie and Commissioner Fletcher to hold a executive meeting on the 9th, and the majority of people who responded to that email indicated that that date worked for them. I believe there was one response that that date did not work, and you had indicated for us to go ahead and schedule that. I want to just make sure everyone's aware that I did schedule that. It should be on all of your calendars, and I will send out a notice about that as well.
I won't be in attendance because that's my first meeting with the North Capitol Street group. So I will not be in attendance at that meeting.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. All right. Hearing no further business. This meeting, I see a hand, Commissioner Lockett. Okay, no further business, then this meeting is adjourned.
No business. No, I'm good.
Okay. Commissioner Washington.
Good night, everyone. That's
Okay.
what I was saying.
All right.
Good night. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Okay. All right.